I'm pulling up the YouTube. Yeah. There's Mr. Caserta. David, how are you? You're on mute. And we're recording, so we caught that part. There
How
we go.
about now? Is that better?
That's better.
Yes. How are you all doing? Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year. And then we have our grant writing team too. Here we are.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi there. How are you?
Getting you.
Good afternoon,
Robert,
everybody.
hi there. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Okay, I think we got everybody. We got Paul listening in too. We got everybody. All right, it's a party. Okay, so Madam Clerk, are we ready? Okay, great. So let's call to order our 5 o'clock workshop. Today's Wednesday, January 15, 2025. We are here for presentations on our legislative priorities from the groups that we have with us via Zoom. I don't see anyone here in the log cabin for, well, we do have someone for public comment, so excuse me. So I'm going to just get us started by opening up the public comment if there's anyone that would like to provide that. No, we got to know in the log cabin. I don't know if there's anyone online there. I think this is just our group. Okay, I don't think so. Great. So let's go ahead and move back past public comment, get into our presentations. I don't know if David's going to go first. All right, David. So we'll give you the floor to kind of give us an introduction in addition to and supplement the email materials that we all received in advance of the workshop.
Wonderful. Thank you. And welcome everybody live from Tallahassee, Florida and the Capitol. First week of committee weeks up here. And so we had some good meetings, but I wanted to begin because, I know over the last month and a half, we've had, some concerns about how, things have been moving from the government relations standpoint and the communication and components like that. And I want to address it because I realized that in my conversations with many of you over the last and watching some of the meetings and the comments from the meeting, I had to really take a look and see what was actually, happening here because I've been doing this for 30 years and I know the system, I know how it works, and I know and I know the process. And I realized that I think post Mario and pre Albert, there were a lot of issues with management and communication with management and the commission. And I think that probably caused a lot of confusion with regards to what was going on, because over the years, I've had a lot of conversations, especially with Commissioner McDonald and Mayor Groth and Amsler and Commissioner Huntington and everyone with regards to being wanting more information, wanting to know where we stand. And so I made it, my goal to do that over the years. And what I've discovered is a lot of the data, the reports, the requests that I've made from all of you from a policy standpoint, appropriations, apparently did not get from the management to you. And so that's where I think the gap went. So what I just did recently, just as of maybe about an hour ago, I sent over to your manager, Al, just as an example, and this was by request of Commissioner Amsler, just to see what we've done. Just maybe 1/120th of the reports and stuff that I'd sent to the previous manager, requesting and soliciting your all's opinions on things, and also guiding you after our monies had come in to call the governor's office and everything. And apparently none of that got to you. So I just wanted to show you what I did so that you saw that part of the information that you all unfortunately missed out on. And I say that because at this point, having spoken with the manager and knowing Al and his ethics and his ability and understanding of this process, I think it's very clear that he understands the process. And I don't foresee you all having that communication problem anymore. I think I wanted to send the letter that I sent you, the email outlining the process and how the state lobbyist works and some of the things and how we communicate and some important dates for everybody to have, just to get it out of the way so we don't waste time doing that today, because that's not what today is actually about. We can talk about at the end, making sure that we follow the process. The process has always been the same. uh, and I just think there was just a communication barrier over the last year and a half when the village was in turmoil, and I'm sorry for that, but the efforts did not hinder our role and our job in Tallahassee on what we do on behalf of the village. So I just wanted to share that. Now, having said that, we had a chance to meet myself, the manager, and the mayor with our state senators, and I met with the state representative Joseph as well, just to talk about what's coming up, because we always do that, prior to each session, and get the temperature of Tallahassee. And just a couple bits of information that I want to share with you now that will hopefully help in your discussions tonight, because really this is a workshop for you all to really look at the last year and say, hey, here are some of our issues that we have not been able to get to or fund or whatever that are important for this community, and we need to prioritize these, and that's the stuff that we need to go after at the state level. And then throughout the year, talk about the stuff we might not get at the state level and see how we can work it through the county process or through grants or maybe through a federal process, even though that's not my position. It's mine pretty much state. I've always been there to help and advise in any way I can. I know that the door has always been open for me and all of you, and many of you have taken advantage of that. I've spoken to each and every one of you about particular issues that you've had and advice that how to handle certain things, and I hope that I gave you the information that you needed. But one of the things that we were led to believe by our representation up in Tallahassee is that it's a tight year. The agencies are being asked to cut in a lot of areas. Programs and projects they're being asked to limit on those projects and the amount that we're requesting on each of the projects. One of the things they really want to see is a kind of a state impact that each project might have, so that it really justifies the state involvement, which means they're not really excited about the individual park programs or recreation or things like that. They're more looking for infrastructure, roads, water, and other things that do have some kind of a state involvement or state impact. And so, having said that, I think that gives you a good information to sort of begin and talk about, amongst each other now. What are some of the things that you've seen over the past year that are troubling the village, and use those as our tools and our priorities to move forward. And once we get those, then we will immediately get together with the manager, establish our the forms that we need to submit. I've already talked to many of the sponsors already who are prepared and ready to get and take our priorities and file them. So that's all in place as well. All we're missing now is the discussion and the commitment from you all as a body in agreeing on a couple of the priorities that you would like to see up in Tallahassee.
All right, David, thank you very much for the update. This is remember a workshop, so it's kind of open format. I know some of the emails that you provided to the manager that was forwarded on to us. I know I don't think I ever saw them before, so I don't think that they had been provided to the commission. So
you saw the detail that's in each one of those, and
yeah,
they're important, and it's important.
No, certainly.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And it's nice to see that you were providing the updates. It's unfortunate we didn't get a chance to see them. So I just kind of like to direct our focus, because I want to do as much as we can in the time that we have you and our grant writing team for. So let me just kind of narrow down a time frame from your perspective. I know we're talking about going up to session, and I'll open that up to everybody here who wants to talk about it. And remind me, I know your email sent it out, but when do we have to have those kind of appropriations forms completed by again?
Sure. The deadline for the submission of the forms in the House and Senate have different regulations, but for the House, which is the more important because they actually have a specific deadline, it's February 14 at 5 p.m. So,
Okay.
So we still have good time. That's why when asked if the 15th was a good day for you guys to do this, I'm fine with that. We still have plenty of time. And once you decide this evening, we will work to get those submitted well in advance. Good to go. I've already solicited our sponsors. March 7th would be the time where the attestation forms. They have added which they always have had in the last couple of years, attestation forms, which basically, says that the manager is attesting that this is a project, this is legitimate, what we're saying is true about these projects, and this is what is important to the community. There's bill submission dates, but we don't really need to worry about those because as a body, we don't really file bills. Bills are usually filed against the municipalities, and we go and fight them along with the Florida League of Cities and other municipalities, government relations teams, because there's a lot that gets filed, as you all know, as you could see in some of my reports there. We're talking about, hundreds of bills that get filed, and we all have to try to address each one of those on behalf of you all. So that's another thing that we do up there on the policy side. So
Okay.
right now, February 14th is the important date.
Okay. And again, based on the conversations that you and I have had, and just for the benefit of everyone here with us now, those forms that we're going to be submitting, I mean, those are more focused on being approved for shovel-ready projects, correct?
Yes, absolutely, shovel-ready projects. Because that was the problem last year. I know many of you have asked, well, what happened last year? Well, we pulled out the impossible. We actually got some funding in the process, but obviously when it gets to the governor's office and he says, wait a minute, this is design, this is not, what happens if that project doesn't go through? Why are we wasting our money? So that's why that one got, knocked off the block there. But yeah, they want to see stuff that's ready to go, by the end of the year. And I know you all have some things, based on conversations with all of you and the manager and everybody that you need to get done and are ready to go, at least in phases. That's one of the things that I think is a good thing, is to create phases. So there's smaller amount, the phases allow for a smaller allocation, but at least it begins the process of addressing your issues.
Okay. And so Commissioner Amsler had asked what you mean by shovel-ready, like where.
So
I think this comes from a place of how we kind of maximize being successful within this kind of window that we have, is what can we send up to the state, which will give us the best chance of it getting approved and getting money from them.
yeah, so
And from what I understand, it's shovel-ready project. So of course, the first thing my mind went to was our drainage project. Drainage project is ready.
yes.
Go on.
Something I just wanted to touch base on that. You said what would you recommend against what we did last year that didn't work out this year round?
Well, I mean, like I said, again, the last year was for design. So it's almost like, you're asking for it's almost like saying, perfect example, when we went after the $1 million for the municipal building that you have there, if we would have gone after, I need money to just create plans and, for what it would look like and have it ready, that would not be acceptable to them, because they'll spend 300, 400,000. And all of a sudden what happens is if the village says, yeah, you know what, we're not going to do that. But what they would do, which they did, and we got the $1 million, was we need this for the capital, for the construction of our municipal building. We have our monies ready. We have our designs already. Everything's ready to go. We just need the money to get the project moving, because we're a small community. We don't have commercial, help here, base. And so
Got it. So on that point, so my question was, so where are we? And this is probably for the manager. So the plan B of the project, the drains project, in order to request. So if we want to say we're ready for construction, we need the planning and design prior to that. We didn't get that money that last year. So how do we move forward?
David, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that it's all been, the project's all been identified, and they're all shovel ready. All the drainage are shovel ready.
That's the part that I wasn't understand. So if last year we didn't get the money for it that we were hoping because it was in the plan and design stage, then, did we do the plan and design stage and now we're ready for what we call shovel-ready construction phase?
Yeah, I understand it was already all planned out. You already had a plan A, a plan B.
If we didn't get the money for it and it was for the planning and design.
Yeah, I think, if I may, what I think Commissioner is asking, and it's a good question, because once again, those kind of questions, it's very important for you to understand that I'm not going to have the answers to that. I'm not involved in
Understand.
day-to-day operations. I don't do
Yeah.
public works. That's where you all have to have that. But I think what she's asking is if the project that we are now looking at going after, the drainage project, the construction side of it, is associated with the project that we were looking to get the design for last year and we didn't, were
Right.
allocated to prepare those design plans already, and are they're ready to go so that when we do get the money, they will be, we will be ready to move forward, or do we not know about that?
Yeah, so David, I was looking at the application last year, and the application last year was that they had a shovel-ready project was, was it already to go? And that's what was submitted. So correct me if I'm wrong, if last year was just a design?
That's what I was told by your manager, that it was the design.
I'll have to go back and look at it then. I'll have to go back and look at last year's application.
Yeah,
So on that point, that's what I was asking you. If that didn't work out because you're saying we were not shovel ready and we need them first to be there, we need to invest on the planning and design phase.
I
And
think
that-
that's important. Now,
Okay.
could you potentially get away with, presenting an appropriations that sort of has the design in it because it's a quick thing, and then the capital improvements as well, and you can get that done within the year? Then I think that's something that we could potentially, push as a shovel ready.
So
Guys,
David,
may I say something here?
yeah,
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
Yeah, none of those drain projects are shovel ready. By shovel ready, they mean the designs have gone all the way through the vendors, and literally they're ready to bring a backhoe in and dig. That's what Dave means by shovel ready. They are ready to go if we have the funding. None of our drain projects are that far along yet. They're in the design phase. And Al, what you're seeing, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, that's just basically the order of the different drain projects that we mean to tackle in the coming years. But you'll see that none of them are through the design phase yet.
Okay.
We
so-
initially thought, this was going back 2 managers ago, that we could come up with one plan, that one design that could be duplicated, but then we found out they could not even do that, that each one had to be its unique design.
Do you
now-
know why? I mean, is there a reason why this has always been sort of me scratching my head. Why don't we go for more money? Why don't we go for the planning design for several phases and then already, I understand there might be a match and, force us into a budget situation, but can we do that? Can we just put 2 phases for design and planning? If we're not there, we cannot.
Can I also put something as,
Why is that?
I also want to say, that Mac I'm sorry, Mac, Commissioner is absolutely correct in his assessment there. But one of the things he just alluded to, and I think could be important, is if you're able to create a design plan for the entire project and then break it down into phases. So in other words,
Yeah.
okay, we'll do a design plan from this street all the way, 10 blocks, and it's going to cost us $2 million. I'm just throwing numbers out. And then we then come in and say, okay, but we're going to do that over a period of 3 years. But the first phase of that is a $400,000 or $500,000 investment. And that's what we're going after now for the construction and everything. So you could probably do that rather than do 3 separate designs and
So you're
stuff.
saying submit
Yeah.
all the plans at one time, get all the plans done, submit them all as one project in phases rather than as separate projects. I think that is an interesting way to approach it. And I think the challenge is going to be that while we initially thought it was kind of a copy paste design, they call it, does anyone there remember what Mario used to call it? I forget. It's like a contractor's way of saying copy and paste. But then we learned that we could not do that because each area is so specific and what's underground and blah, 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 and the needs for that area, that we couldn't do that anymore. We had to do each one as a separate design. Now, if we came up with a design money, Vero, to do the design for all of them, then we
Well,
could.
that's what I was asking,
Yeah,
Mac,
now I
but
don't think that would be this year, but then we could present that to Dave next year and say, look, we've
Yeah.
designed all 9 projects, whatever's left on that list. I forget how many are left there. And we have the design for all of them submitted to him and let him ask for money each year over the coming years. Then it's kind of plug and play. For Dave.
correct, but I just asked that to the manager where he was saying we can't do that. You want to expand on that?
Well, during the legislative session, they're looking for projects that are shovel-ready, as David has already said. So they're looking for things that you're ready to build. You're competing against all these other cities throughout the state of Florida that are up there in Tallahassee, and the mayor's going to see this when he goes up. We're saying, hey, this is why our project is so important, and we have all the funding was in place, but we don't have enough funding to build it, and that's the money that you're asking for, and
But for the planning, we could maybe put
so
some
the
of them-
planning, no, the planning, you're going to have to look for grants, or you're going to have to come up with your own
Come up
money,
with money,
something like that.
Yeah.
That's not what the legislative session is for.
I think
So-
we're also getting a little confused here because there's more than just identifying phases. There was locations picked out. We know exactly which streets we were on.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then Chris and former manager Truitt and former Public Works Director Penna were thinking of redesigning, going from French drains to injection wells. And I think that's where this new design is coming in. These were more shovel ready, I think, than we're alluding to right now.
I don't think so. I don't
Well-
think they were.
No, I
Because
think
you have to have the
Commissioner
designs
Penna-
all written up, but we don't have design. I mean, can anyone produce the plans? There would be actual physical plans that we would have in our hands if that were the case.
So something I just shared, I just forwarded to the attention of the manager, and he can send it around. This is the proposal from BEA Architects back from 2023. This actually does outline each individual phase: Phase 1A, Phase 1B, Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4. It has costs for all of the length of all the drainage, the number of lanes, the lane width, the medians for every road, and the down to the penny cost of what it's going to cost to do for each one. Now, it may not be engineering structural designs, but I think this is about as close as we're going to get.
That sounds pretty shovel ready to me.
It's
Well,
that's the
it's not the
part I
design.
don't
We were
know
told
what-
it needed to be the actual designs for
Yeah.
that each specific drain.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you, Mac. I think I'm sure you're right. I'm just saying I think we have this, and maybe we can share it with David, and maybe David can look at it, and from your
Cool.
experience, David, maybe you can look at it and say, is this going to pass muster for the state allocation committees?
Let
to
me
say, yeah, this is ready.
let me ask a simple question. You just read something there, and you said, what was that now? It was from a planner?
I'm going to send it to you, David.
Yeah, but-
It's an architect, David.
Okay, so an
Yeah,
architect
understood.
sent you what he said. He said that to do whatever it is, he gave you how much it was going to cost, right?
For every single road, in every single phase, correct?
It's a
But-
39-page document.
Okay, but in that document, is there, as Mac alluded to, is there a set of plans that he established, or is that a price he was giving us for the design of what he said can happen?
I'm looking through. I don't think that there's, again, to Mac's point, I don't think that there's a full-blown, engineering study
Right.
and design.
Just
Um,
I think that was what was being used to try to get the money for last year to do that project.
Okay,
With design, get the engineering, getting everything ready.
Right.
And
We were trying to get to the design thing so we could ask for money. That's what I'm trying to say here, is that this is not what Dave's asking for. That does not meet the requirement of shovel ready.
Now, I will ask you this, do you all have any funds? Because obviously, when you go after the state funds, you have to have some kind of contribution. The smaller cities maybe can get away with, 20, 30%. Most of the time, they want 50%. But do you have any allocations available to do at least a phase one of a design, as Mac alluded to? In other words, let's just pick 2 blocks or whatever it is. Let's see how much the design would cost for that. Say it's 300,000. Do you all have that? Because then what we could do is go in and say, okay, the design and the construction is going to cost 800,000. we're putting in 300, which is the planning and stuff. We just need the balance for the construction, and all of that will be, we will be shovel ready by November of this year. So it gives you time to do the design, the plan, and then hire the contractor, and then boom, you kick into the second part of what you're asking the money for, and you're getting ready to just break ground in November on this little phase. I mean, do you have that ability to do that?
So David, to answer your question, I can set up a meeting next week between you, me, and Mario, and just to go over this document and just see,
Okay.
what we need to do to be shovel ready.
Okay. And then also just look also in the coffers to see if you, even if it's not for that entire plan, because it sounds like that's for like a big picture, maybe just seeing if what the cost would be for just a 2 or 3 block of that plan, how much would the design cost, and how much would the construction cost? And then we can sort of gauge, okay, the village have, some money set aside somewhere that they can contribute, so that at least while we're going after, the money in Tallahassee, you could begin the process of getting the design and the engineering plans moving, so that, if we are able to get the money, great. If we're not, at least you have the design plans, and then we'll see how we can go about finding the money elsewhere through grants or whatever it might be to do the construction side of it.
There is a price tag on phase 1B of $800,000 in the CIP.
Yeah, see, I think that was, and that's for that entire plan, right?
Yes, I would
So that's
think
what,
so.
yeah, that's what I think was used last year for the design plan and that. So if the entire design for that entire project is 800,000, let's just assume you take a third of it. You're talking about $250,000.
Yeah.
Because do you all have the capability somewhere, because you're going to need it anyway, and we'll use that as the matching dollars to get that going.
And
Well,
if
can
we
we
do,
use grants for some of that match, Dave? So,
Yeah.
because that's our next conversation is with the
Yeah.
grant writer about dovetailing both of you in together, because we don't have to come up with the money out of our own reserve.
No.
We could come up with it from grant money, and that's the other part of this conversation. I'm going to throw a little wrench into something here just because it needs to be said out loud. This is a years-long plan to replace the drains. And of course, when we go septic to sewer, that's going to rip up all these drains, because then the roads get ripped up for sewer, and all the money we would have spent on all of these drains, which they're French drains. They are not removing water from the village. They are simply storing it underground as much as we can. And they're still flooding even when the drains are in place. And that's everyone's frustration, is we spent all that money on a drain while my street's still flooding. Well, it doesn't solve the problem because it's not removing water. So, should we be working harder on that permanent fix rather than this temporary fix that we know A, is not sufficient, and B, will just be money literally down the proverbial drain at a future date when the real fix comes into play? That's the awkward part of all of this, right? We're like, streets are flooding, do something about it. Here's a solution that's not really a solution. And then it's just going to be dragged out of the ground when we do go to sewers. So how do we navigate all of that?
The one thing you'll find, Commissioner, also, because you're correct. One of the things you'll find is that government never does anything that makes sense. So in other words,
Trust me, I've been doing this 5 years. I know that. I know.
Okay, so
give me my own list.
There's been projects where they've done resurfacing, okay, and then like a year later they rip it all up to put in the whatever. So but here's the problem though: you don't know in government when they're going to get to it. So the problem you have is from now to a year or 2 or 3 or 4, the roads get worse, and then now accidents, and now deaths, and now, so you unfortunately have to try to put a Band-Aid until the problem's fixed. Now you're specifically talking about septic to sewer. That issue, as you know, since you've been here, they've been trying to work on that. We've had conversations with our former Senator Pizzo, who was in our district and has moved in another district, and then our Senator Jones. And we just had that recent conversation with Senator Jones and the mayor and myself and the manager. That is still something that they know they need to do because it only makes sense. They've got to find a way to allocate dollars, find a plan or whatever it might be to address the septic to sewer, especially as they start now having to resurface and fix roads and do all that kind of stuff. So
Can I add something to that, David?
yes,
So we recently, not recently, since last year, we've been hearing the adaptation action area on the canal, and they have been doing a study, and this is coming from, let me tell you, Miami-Dade Water and Sewer Department related to septic to sewer. This is an ongoing issue and research and planning and design on their side, trying to understand what they can convert, what the infrastructure looks like, and listening to both El Portal, Miami Shores, and then us. You recently asked Mr. Manager an email for them to share the latest presentation. The last one that was done last year was regarding Miami Shores, now included us, and I haven't seen the presentation. But we're closer than you think with this. I mean, at that time when they came forward, the whole conversation was we might have a priority to go and ask for funds. And just to read out loud, and this again is from last year. They're saying the AAA planning process is an excellent format for highlighting needs and has been effective in garnering funding for sewer expansion. The plan recently developed in the Little River adaptation area determined that the septic to sewer conversion was a priority need, and subsequently funding was received from FDEP. And so I think because that started in El Portal, then Miami Shores, like I said last year, and this year it's us, we might be in the perfect opportunity to engage with them and understand what the planning and design on their side kind of, and all the research kind of provided, and see, you know, what comes out of that on that side to make it a priority to go and ask for the funding.
yeah, I definitely think that we probably should take a proactive stand, which we have. I mean, we're meeting with our legislators and everything, but maybe more proactive with the county. You know, and the mayor, I know you've talked to, you know, the commissioner too as well on a lot of things, but so that's something maybe get them involved in on as well. But yeah, being proactive. But even with that, even as they move forward and they're including us in that dialogue, by the time they get to making a decision, they get to planning. By the time anything even ask for money, I mean, my experience, you're talking 6 years, 7 years, 5 years. You know what I mean? It depends. So
Do we know any updates from, have you had a conversation maybe with El Portal? So any advancements from the study?
Well, the last conversation that I had was, well, it wasn't even a conversation, it was kind of anecdotal from Miami Shores about changes to the, to the waterway here
Yeah.
and removing a potential, I have no idea where this is because I haven't spoken with the mayor over there, but again, anecdotally, I heard that they were planning or proposing to remove the dam and open that waterway to make it bay access. So that's the last I'd heard about. That was just a couple weeks ago.
I think that we might be in the perfect opportunity to grab all the efforts that are happening already, that, you know, completely funded by the county, that's not our money, that would put us in a priority to go and request for sewer conversion, at least in certain areas that are highlighted by the study. That would be the step number one. To your point, Mac, of not just going for money to design roads and then we break them in order to address, you know, the county comes later and does
Yeah.
this. We recently saw that. I don't know if you guys remember, but Griffin Boulevard was brand new asphalt.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then, you know, what was it, a year plus maybe later came
Yep.
through that they needed more drainage system installed in the corner of 113th. So how do we move forward in terms of coordinating this?
Well, and then they came back and did it a second time, if you'll recall. So they tore that street up twice after it was redone.
Yeah. So I think there's some few kind of asterisks in terms of there's stuff happening in the county in terms of septic to sewer conversion. Let's see where that stands. Let's understand if that puts us in a better position to ask for money. And then the question is where the money comes from, then grants, and see also your efforts, David. And I understand it wouldn't be for planning and design, but then at least we can say, well, then let's leave it for the next 2 years when actually planning and design happen from the county that they pay for the portion. Let's not focus on the drain system for now, because at some point that's coming. It might be 2 years. We've waited already too. I mean, since I've been here, I'm talking about the same thing, but they're closer to come to a conclusion, so.
I agree, but you're in a catch-22 because, as much as we like to rely on government, it's relying on government.
We've learned. Yep. Hear
So-
ya.
So
Yeah.
why most everyone will do these little projects as long as they can get some state help, so we can at least Band-Aid, so that people aren't sitting there taking boats to the front of their homes to get in during a storm or a flood or whatever it is. So it's your call. I mean, if I make a recommendation, at least now on the topic of the drainage, what I would do is you have a report sitting there, which sounds like it's report for the entire drainage program, which is an $800,000 thing. See what it would be to just do it in phases, cost, charge for the planning, whatever, and how long it would take him to. I don't think that long. I hope not. And then basically submit that project with the design and the actual construction of phase 1. And we can put a number to that, and then you all need to decide in your coffers what your match is going to be. And that match is what we will use, or we will say to the state is the money that's going to the actual design and planning of it. We're looking for help from the state to get the construction part once that's done, which we estimate the design and planning will be done by July, August. And then we will have a contractor in place and we will be able to break ground in November.
Dave, does that mean when we say we're shovel ready on a project and we would like to get a grant for our matching portion, do we have to have that grant solidified to show them that we're going to use that? Or do we have to say we're prepared to use our own money if we don't get a grant?
Yes, you have to say it's going to be is secured. Like
you broke up. I didn't hear what you said.
You'll have to use that your own money, the local money, until that grant is secured. So I know, okay. I forgot what they call it, but for the road monies, you have that already, so you can use that as part of the thing. So that's how I would do it, and we can always pull the project later during the process if we have to. If you come to the conclusion that we can't do this, but at least we submit it. We try to move forward with the phase 1. We can generate a couple bucks to do the planning for that, like you said, Mac, for the first 3 blocks or something. And then part of what we're requesting is the actual construction side. So we're contributing $250 or $300, but we're asking, for $500 more from the state to help us do the actual construction.
So on the point of, I guess, since we brought up the grants, and I want to be, sensitive to our grant writing team's time as well. I don't want to move us off the conversation, but I would like to give them an opportunity to chime in on this and, provide us with any information that might be helpful from their perspective too, since I see, we do have a special commission meeting after this. So if no one's opposed, I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak up if that's all right.
Are we going to have an opportunity before we're done with this meeting, Jonathan, to list the other things that we think are priorities? Because all we've talked about so far are drains.
Yeah, I mean,
sounds like Dave was really clear. He wants a list.
Yeah, look, I agree. We have to do that. So let's.
I don't possible, just once again, because I'm going to be in transit too. You'll also see, and they'll probably verify this. Grants and the state lobbying are 2 completely different things, and they'll explain that to you. We focus on the state and the appropriations process. We might identify a few grant opportunities, and I always give them to the managers, but then he'll give them to the grant writers, and then they take it from there. But if we can, maybe discuss another project real quick, because I think we understand with the drainage where we have to go with that. I know another one. I think from what I'm hearing from all of you are some of the road issues. I mean, is that another possible priority that you'd like to take a look at?
Well, I'll let
definitely
them
something
chime
we
in,
need to
but
go
since
over.
I brought it up, for me, it's traffic. All the different ways that we can control, limit the amount of traffic that comes into the village, control traffic when it's inside the village. We recently signed our agreement with the county, so we can move forward unilaterally on things as well. But now it's time to get something done to make people feel safer walking the streets of Biscayne Park. So anything related to traffic safety, I think would be a big gain. And that might include roundabouts and some other things that would slow traffic down. But none of those are shovel ready. They're just right now, nothing is shovel ready in that regard.
Well,
Well,
with the
I had a
cost-
conversation with David yesterday, and David, you were alluding to that when it comes to road repair, we don't actually have to be shovel ready for that. It's more of a self-explanatory thing. If the roads are in disrepair, you understand what the work is to be done.
Well, yeah, with roads, it's really about paving, repaving and, getting the roads back to a smooth ride so people don't, hurt their cars or hurt themselves. So that's something that I think, that's fairly easy I don't think you have to have a planning and design phase to pave a road. You just have to pave the road. You need the money.
So
So
what do you need? That's a priority for me as well, but what do you need to move forward
just
in that sense? What do you go for? How much money? How does it work?
So the commission has to decide with regards to the roads, how much money they have either in the transportation fund or whatever that you get a part of, whatever, that they can allocate to that process as well. And once we know that number, then, we go in and say, okay, if it's 200 or 300,000, let's ask for another $400,000. And then we'll have $700,000, and whatever that gets us, 700,000, that's phase one for our roads.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because we already have a certain number in our CIP to maximize our dollar, to use that to maximize the impact on the village. It's a great idea.
How much money do we have now on the,
200,000 this year.
do you have it on the CIP? You have it open?
Yes.
So I don't know, once again, I'm not a road guy, but I don't know if we have 200 that we're participating and we're a small city and I can convince them, this 50% is going to be crazy. We can go after, let's say 200, say we go after another 400, say we go after $600,000 and we participate too. How much road can $600,000 help within?
That's the question.
I mean, you can ask someone, whoever does your road, whoever the contractor that would do the road work and stuff, that they'll probably.
At one time, I was given a figure of it was $1 million a mile, but that included sidewalks and
Yeah, that's probably the.
drainage. So I'm sure it's much less, but I'll have to get that figure for you, David.
Okay, yeah, and that's it. So whatever he says, then we'll just say phase one's going to, cover 4 blocks of paving per block, in the community, and we have $1,000. Maybe you guys can contribute another 50 from your budget or 100, whatever it is. You know what I mean? And we can raise that.
Well, between this year and last year, it was 230. We have 30 from last year was unspent and 200 from this year.
Oh, so it's 430.
Where do you see that?
230 total.
Where do you see that?
Road repair. I don't know if these have line items.
I was trying to understand, so we have the roadways at the bottom, and you have public works.
We have road repair upgrades
Yeah,
as a line item.
and that is 18 million.
Yeah, but in 2024, you had 30,000. In 2025, you have 200,000.
Okay, so you're adding those to just say we have 230.
230.
Okay, so and then what do you do? So David, you said, and then we come up to a number, but so how do you get to that number? So from 230, how do you get to 800,000?
So I figured maybe 600,000. So you're basically doing 30% match. So, that's fairly okay for a smaller community, I guess. They always like to see 50%, but I think, try to convince the importance of it, and go after, 600,000. You all are coming up with 230. The balance we're requesting from the state. And you might all want to say, you know what, let's allocate another 50 or 100 grand from our budget. We bring it up to 42% match.
And then at that stage, you go, what do you need to go and sort of make your point valid and make it relevant?
We have forms that ask questions, which ask for the actual description of the project. So we basically fill those forms out, and in the areas of capital construction, we put the wordage that, okay, this is what we're doing. We're putting this much asphalt, we're doing this, we're doing that, and it outlines. And then when I go to argue the point, when you all come up, some of you to Tallahassee, you all will then justify the need for
Yeah.
that.
And so are we're ready at that stage to be able to provide that? All of the feedback that he would need by the deadline?
Yeah, I'll get with David, as I said, and we'll make sure we move forward and work on the project, and I'll also get with Mario and to get some.
And Public Works would probably be able to help fill the format because they probably know exactly what it would take to do.
So that takes $230,000 of the money that we have in the CIP. And you're saying we can get a matching up to 600.
Well, I mean, we can ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. And that would be just for road repairs, nothing related to drains.
No, but we can also then have another project dealing with the drains in the
Yeah.
way suggested before, and then there's our two projects that we can actually go after.
The drains were also addressed in certain areas in the village, not necessarily where all the damages are, so that this money could start on a different area, not necessarily the same that we recognize need to be touched by the drains. So we're not having to redo that section, if I'm clear. Because once like the first phase we had was seven drains, so 7 corners were touched. If we recognize the village has a lot more than just 7 additional drains or areas that need to be addressed in terms of damage. So let's start with those. Let's not touch the drains since there is a lot of homework to be done and understanding who can pay for that. And we wouldn't have to touch it twice. It's not something that we are going to have to break again, right? That's the idea.
I mean, I like, since we have a good amount of money in the CIP for the roads, and it sounds like it might be, this is the wrong word to use, but easier to try and get the money for the roads.
Seems like it.
Seems like it. So I do like the idea, a lot of kind of prioritizing that. I do want to, if we have kind of an agreement on that, I do want to make sure we talk for just a minute about traffic, because I would like, David, your input, and whether you have a take on this, I don't know, but because I know Commissioner Kennedy or Vice Mayor Kennedy mentioned the ILA that we just entered into that gives us a little bit more control over what we can do with our traffic calming measures. And attached to our ILA, we have engineering guidelines that we have to follow when we input those things into our roads. So in essence, and this is a bit of an end around way of trying to get to it, in essence, we have the engineering studies because we have to follow them to a T. So David, again, I don't know if this is something you probably need to think about, but if we wanted to, hypothetically speaking, I'm not saying this is what we would do, go and get a traffic circle and say, we want to lobby for a traffic circle. We have engineering guidelines in our ILA that says how we have to build it. Could we put that forth to try and go get funding?
That's a really good point, Jonathan.
What's
Yes.
that?
So
That's a really good point, that we had, we have them, they were provided to us.
We have to follow them. We're required to follow them.
Yeah, yeah.
keep in mind, though, now we have to have a state impact. So
Road safety, state impact. Work with me, David.
is it possible to make some of those calming devices part of the road that you're doing the road work on?
In theory, yes. We'd have to decide which road we're doing the work on and whether it's justified in putting them there. But in theory, I think yes.
So what about the study that we talked about? Is there an opportunity to put that as, and again, I don't know, David, if this comes from you or the grant writers help, trying to allocate some money, or from our budget. Are you okay?
Yes.
Well, but we're going to need a traffic study that determines that.
Well,
Do we need a circle, a roundabout? Maybe it's not that, maybe it's some other solution in some other area. So
in
the
the
money for that study itself, is that something that we can go and include as traffic mitigation? I don't know.
no, that'd be tough because it's just a study.
Yeah.
So, but in one of the questions in the forums is going to be, do you have any documented need for whatever you're doing?
Yeah.
So if you're saying that you have these engineering plans for these calming devices, maybe you can incorporate that with whoever you're going to get to do the road, and let them give you sort of a contractor give you a pricing on that, and then you actually solidify the contractor in the next month or so or two, and now you have a contractor ready to go and move forward for this road, and all we're waiting for is the money from the state. And if we don't get the money from the state, we got to figure out if there's grants or something else where we go after it again next year, whatever it might be. But that could be a process that you all could take on this as well. This way, then it accomplishes Commissioner McDonald's, you know, needs or ideas, and it also accomplishes the rest of the commission's thought and Commissioner Huntington's idea of getting the roads, you know, some of the roads repaired. You're incorporating both in a particular area. So you're doing 3 blocks or something of road work where you have 1 or 2 calming devices within those 2.
Mm.
Yeah, I want to make a real quick question, I guess, while there's a pause here. David, you started your portion of the meeting tonight by telling us that you've been sending reports that didn't make their way to the commission, and that's really unfortunate for us to find out now.
And,
Thanks for letting us know that. My question is, can you just automatically always send them to every commissioner? Just do that, and that way you don't have to depend on someone else to do their job well.
absolutely. And keep in mind, okay, first of all, I have to say this because I know, Mac, you and I are one of the first ones that actually talked when you came in, and you were very adamant, you know, about this. And I promised that we would do this. So that's why I was doing it. And then when you were very concerned that that wasn't happening, I was like, why is he so upset that this is not happening? I've been doing it. And now I'm realizing that clearly it wasn't getting to you. So traditionally I had no direction other than go to the manager. So if everybody's telling me to send it to the manager with a copy to the commission, I will be happy to do that.
Brad, are you there? Is there a problem with Dave sending these directly to us without going through the manager?
I am here, Vice Mayor. I
Hi
mean,
there.
they generally should go through the manager, and the manager should be distributing them through the commissioner. Because he's a vendor of the village, so the vendors shouldn't
Right.
be having direct communication with individual commission.
I'm pretty confident knowing Al, you're going to be okay. I mean, just proof is just the last few weeks. He's given everything that I've sent to you and things and stuff. So I think you're going to be okay. And you know what?
Okay, but here's the thing. I'm always worried about. Okay, so I'm not worried about Al giving them to us.
Right.
I'm worried about when Al's gone in 6 weeks and we have a new manager and then it's not happening again. So if it's possible, if the commission is allowed to, by consensus or vote or whatever, say we want those reports sent directly by the vendor to us, I think we should do that. So that way we aren't in this position ever again.
May I ask council a possible solution? Could it be that I address it and send it to the manager with a CC to the commission?
It's the same. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I just, if I can add one thing, and you and I spoke about this, David, too. We have reports in our commission meetings as well. You know, and there have been meetings and the agenda have been noted not to have reports from you specifically. You have the alternative to come and push something forward and come and present maybe a status on a quarterly basis, just so to make sure that we kind of track whatever progress is done. Is that something that can be done?
So
Sir, you can do that. David, the other option, just trying to throw something simple out, you could copy me as well on whatever you send to the manager.
okay.
And this way, at least I can facilitate it getting to the commission. If through the manager or otherwise.
That would probably be better with Commissioner Ansler. You know, as I mentioned to you before, during session, everything, time is extremely valuable. It moves quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just can't take 2 hours or an hour and a half to come and say, hey, by the way, I sent you this. So now what I can do is do what we've done in the past where I've sent the stuff, whether I'll send it to the attorney as well, and he can get it to you. You call me and say, Dave, what about this issue here? This is of interest to me. And I talked to you about it. And I said, okay, here's what I think you should do. Here's what I think you can do. And I'd give everybody advice. I know you've done that with me on Form 6. I know Mac's done that with me on 3, 4, 5 different projects. So I could do that. That's not a problem, because that's just a phone call that I'm having with you and make that happen. And then every so often when I can, yeah, I'll be happy to come before the commission like I've always have. I've never denied that, whenever you ask me to come before and report on something. So I think that might be a great recommendation that the attorney just made, to send a CC to him, and then he can just,
Yeah, I also want to make sure that at some point we have something in written from you whenever that's possible, either it's twice a year. I mean, you define whatever dates work best based on that workflow that you have. But we need to be better are just putting together the next, for the next manager or the future manager, or just the commission itself, sort of the history of what's going on. Because here we are trying to understand what happened and setting up a meeting with the previous manager. I think it's very helpful to understand the steps that were taken, who was, a full report from your behalf, what efforts were there, so we can continue building on that moving forward.
I think if you take a look at what I sent you tonight, just the 4
Yeah,
emails,
I know.
the detail you see, and that's done often as I possibly can.
Yeah.
So timeline, but so you do see that that's already being done. It was just unfortunate that it wasn't getting to you. And so hopefully that will change, and that this will not be an issue for the commission.
So I know our time is short here. We've covered a couple of kind of high ticket items, some things that David can work on for us. Drainage, roads, traffic, some of those things. I'd like to open it up very quickly if there's any other things that we want to bring up that we want to focus on. I mean, again, knowing our time is short and knowing what we're kind of prioritizing in the immediate future. But I don't want to rob anybody the opportunity to bring up any other areas that they want to discuss. So I'm just going to kind of open it up.
Those are all of mine.
Yeah, no, and just a broader question. I don't know if you're familiar with the CIP that we put together, David, because I was wondering if you could, when you see that, what comes to mind? What are we missing? I always don't know what I don't know, right? What I'm not asking. Like you have a great idea, maybe consolidating traffic and the road improvements. If there's anything else, that you see in the CIP that we were missing and that could be addressed somehow, I would ask you to let us know.
Keep in mind, I think the manager and your public works and those folks would probably be better suited to give you that. I'm just giving you Dave. Because I'm a business guy. I do development, so I just give you some ideas. But I'm not going to be an expert in identifying a lot of the stuff that the village needs, because I don't participate in the day-to-day activities, and I'm not part of those funds and what they're actually. But your manager and the folks that associate with it can certainly tell you. But I will always give you my opinion if I'm looking at something to say, oh yeah, they're right, or okay, that sounds good, or maybe you could do that.
The CIP already has the priorities. We've already done that work, and you see it breaking down by department of what our goals are and what we want to get.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking is, when you see that, you can come up with strategies and ideas to how to consolidate some of them, maybe, how to phase them in a better way.
Okay.
What's more relevant this year versus previous year? You mentioned, this year specifically, it's more, regarding infrastructure, roads and floods. And so anything that has to do with that is going to, cover more of the attention that is needed. So I would just, I don't know, Albert, does David have RCIP? If not, I mean, we can share with you. I would just keep it in mind that that's the work we did already with the manager prior to highlight the priorities. And the idea now is, how do we strategize between you, the lobbies, the money we have to make it happen?
I will consult with the manager, and we will sit together on a lot of this stuff, and he'll share with me, and I'll give my thoughts on this. And then, tonight, hopefully you'll all give me directive on those 2 projects right there to start at least working on and moving forward. And then we'll work together with the manager to see how we can, sew up the loose areas of those projects to get it ready for what we need, to have up in Tallahassee. So, and that's it. And then, and then the other projects, I'll always be there, and maybe I'll recommend the county or help or go here, or you might say, hey, Dave, I can't get this done here on the local thing and I can help in some way. I'll always do that. So I have a long-term relationship with you all, and I want to help in any way I can. So
before we move on, because I know we're after 6 o'clock and we got to get to our special meeting. First of all, Robert, you and your group, maybe you can join us for a presentation or something at one of our regular commission meetings so we can have some time with you. I do apologize. We didn't have a lot of time to spend with you. So again, please accept my apologies, Robert.
So I'm getting bumped?
I think so.
It's like I'm on the Tonight Show. Okay.
Yeah.
No worries. You guys will be nicer next time. You're really nice because you bumped us this time. Right.
That's right.
No worries.
Thank you so much.
This is a really bad joke, but I think they took you for granted.
Whoa.
Actually, a pretty good joke. Actually,
That's a great joke.
Thank
You
you.
might want to
Thanks,
steal
David.
that one, Robert. Put that
That's
in your
good.
file.
Listen-
I will.
Robert, thank you. So listen, before we wrap up really quickly, I just wanted to bring this up because I know I expressed my intent and I've talked to David about joining him in session in a couple of weeks. And I know we've had this discussion about if there are more than one of us there, we kind of need to game plan. So I wanted to ask any of the other commissioners if you had an intention or desire to go up at the same time that I'm planning on being there.
I can't, and I'm very happy that you can represent us there.
No?
Glad you represented us.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. From David and my discussion with him, it sounds like I don't think Biscayne Park has had anybody up there in like over 2 decades. So I'm excited to get up there and try and help us out.
I think the last person up there was Mayor Childress.
I do plan in the future to go up.
Okay, well, we can, we'll game plan it for when we have more than one person. All right, unless anybody has anything else, I think we need to adjourn our workshop, but I'll open it up. Anybody else have anything before we move on?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, David, thanks for being here. Robert, thank you to your group, you
Take
and your
care.
group for joining us. We'll get
talk
something on for you to join us.
No, I
So-
appreciate, by the way, I just want to say I would appreciate listening to David, and grants and lobbying do come together. So hopefully, we can talk now that I met him, through here, that we can talk and work with the manager together.
I
Well,
look
good.
forward. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm glad to hear that. And I'm looking forward to having you two kind of game plan some things for us. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for the workshop. I think we are adjourned for 6 o'clock.
Do I need to log off this Zoom and come into a different one, or is it the same Zoom?
The clerk is saying, yes, we have to log off this one and she will
Okay.
launch the new one.
I'll see you guys in a minute.
Okay, great. We're adjourned and we'll get ready for our 6 o'clock in a second. Thanks, everyone.
All of the participants log off and come in on the other link directed to the special commission meeting. If I don't.